Island of News at 2:45 a.m. on the morning of I think it's the 27th, it's a Saturday. Waiting to join Richard Forbes and Karen Dodds in the UK on a lawful remedy.
Hello and welcome back to another of our very exciting lawful remedies. Lots of interesting things happen in these shows. We're live on YouTube and you are very, very welcome to join us. As ever, we have a panel of experts and we have the lovely Karen Dodd who is waiting to introduce them. Julia is lurking in the chat room, ready to get your questions if we don't see them and pass them to us. And she's also moderating as well, so no dodgy language. Thank you very much. Today, most of the panel are all over the world, it seems. So let's find out from Karen where they all are. If I go to Karen. Hello, Karen.
Yes. Hello, Richard. Well, I'm not in the Albion today either. I'm over in sunny Spain to try and get some sunshine because it's a bit treacherous in England at the moment, isn't it? I saw pictures of the weather yesterday. It's unbelievable. Those
sunny at the moment. You're missing the sunshine in Sussex. Oh yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll bring some more back. I think we've got 2 weeks of good weather, so I'll bring some back. It's very, very hot over here. But today we've got a great panel as usual. So we're joined by 2 new chaps, and we'll start off with A for Australia. So we have Dr. Barry with us. Would you like to say hi, Barry, and just give us an idea about what you've been doing during this weird time that we're going through?
Well, about 4 years ago, we got involved in the common law. It's a long story, but to keep it short, we have now progressed to the stage where we have 2 sheriffs in Melbourne, and we've had about 20 odd court cases. We introduce, if we have someone to prosecute, if we wish, I hate that term, but anyway, we use the grand jury, and then the grand jury indict them, and then we send them a summons to come to a court of 12. And sometimes they turn up, but very rarely, because they ignore us to start with, to their peril, because the jury go ahead without them anyway. And we have 17 deputies here. The other sheriffs have got 3 or 4 deputies. There are 3 in Sydney, 3 sheriffs in Sydney, and 3 up in Townsville. Now, the very most important thing is, to be a sheriff, you must be elected by a number of people. So you have a large group of people say, yes, we accept you. So then you become a sheriff-elect. And then you've still got no powers. Then you set up a court of 12 where you're going to do a court case. They get sworn in. They take their oath, and then they are a sworn jury, and the bailiffs are sworn in, a sheriff of the day for the court, just like it was in the old days. And then the deputy sheriff or the sheriff takes his oath before that jury, and each member of the jury sign off on a certificate. I'm looking up certificate of appointment and confirmation. So then lawfully you are a sheriff. Then the sheriff picks suitable people, or ex-police, ex-army, or somebody who's got people who really want to get off the bum and do something about the situation. They go before another court when the courts are set up, and they take their oath before a jury, again signed off by each member of that jury. And we've had a lot of success. We've had CEOs of council stand down when they've been prosecuted, and our paperwork goes to The Hague. And we're now a member, well, for the last year or so, a member of the Sheriff's Association USA, a recognized sheriff's office, because the power of the sheriff is look, it comes from England. It has an enormous power because you cannot be sacked. It's like they can't get rid of the president of the United States, because he's elected. So it's an elective office, and he works for the people, on behalf. It's the people's court. So the statute system cannot argue if you do it properly. And this, sadly, a lot of people set up sheriffs all over the place here in Australia, and they've all died away because they didn't do it properly. But if you do it properly, it's 100% lawful, and that's the main thing.
God, that is amazing, isn't it? Why don't we have anything like that over here?
Well, you did have it. You did have it at one stage. You had Smith. That's where I learned everything. But sadly, John went off the rails, and money became more important than the law. And I learned a lot from him. And of course, Kevin Arnott started it up originally. And Kevin Arnott was brilliant to start with. He brought the Pope down, Pope Benedict. Ratzinger. Remember, he spent all his life in the because of the Justice Court in The Hague actually backed up the common law court. So you guys have an enormous history of England doesn't have a constitution written, but it has history, and the history of the common law is there for you all to use. Instead of 7 little groups which are doing fantastic work, you use the system that's England. It's untouchable, unstoppable, and a sheriff's office is got an enormous power because it works directly for the people and an elected official.
Wow, there they are. That's our first. I think that's our first member of the panel as well. So there's at 3 o'clock in the morning. I think you are at there, Dr. Barry.
Yes.
Who else have we got, Karen?
You are being joined though. So, yeah, Richard, I was just saying you've already got somebody from Australia, from Ipswich in Queensland, Australia. So that's great. I don't know if she's up at 3 o'clock in the morning or 4 o'clock in the morning, but she's saying great.
Yeah, well, he's bad news, that guy. Yeah, he done more damage to common law than anybody else. Mick Holt, you're talking about, he was on Richard's show some time ago, and the guy has never he made a lot of money setting up assemblies, which the word assembly is kind of it's a statute system as well, and they were making money out of it, and they went sour as well, and they've disappeared. They've never had a court case, never had anything set up, and the only thing they've done was cause harm, loss and injury to the common law itself.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Barry. So moving on to our other panelists, we've also got a new guest, Stan McDonald. So he's speaking from Canada, and you're saying you're not there voluntarily. You've gone there for other reasons, probably. What, you're skiing over there, Stan? What are you doing over there?
No, I'm not skiing over here. No, I was in the UK, and under the UK law and under passport regulations, you're not allowed to stay in a country more than 6 months. So they gave me an order, basically, you have to go or we will make you go. And then you get your passport flagged and all that. So I didn't want to get into that hot water. I complied with their regulation, and, you're not supposed to make it so that you look like you're trying to make a place your permanent home without doing the proper paperwork. So I did the proper paperwork, and I have every intention of returning to the UK.
Brilliant. It's really nice to see you, because I know you always join the show, The Lawful Remedy, and put some really good questions online for us to ask. So thank you very much for that, and
no
welcome.
Problem.
And then we have two of our regular guests. So we have Sovereign Pete. Hi, Pete. How are you doing?
Hi there, good to see you all again. Yeah, it's nice to be on the channel again. Is this the Richard and Pete show? Because I seem to be a repeat guest, but it's nice to be here anyway.
It's nice to have you, Pete. We need more baldies on this show.
Yes, no problem at all.
It isn't anything to do with the knowledge that you have. It's just it's more baldies.
Yes.
We also have, we've just been joined actually by Gary, but let's just say hi to Tony Rose. Hello, Tony. Welcome back. Lovely to have you on board.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you. I'm glad I cut my hair today.
Oh, there we go. Yeah. There will be an obligatory razor sent to every panelist in future.
Yeah, mine does grow back.
Oh, good. Mine does, but I have to sort of shave most of it because there's very little there.
Nice to have you, Tony. And then welcome, Gary. Lovely to see you this evening. How are you doing?
Yeah, not too bad. I'm sorry I'm late.
Okay.
I'm sorry I'm really late because I've just been literally rushed off my feet with different cases I've been working on, family stuff. It's like today. I've only been back 45 minutes, and like I say, I've got other things that I'm sorting out for now for the 4th of August, because I'm basically doing a talk basically for about an hour at a group that I'm going to say congregating in Ferrybridge. So I've been invited down there. So I've got a presentation to create now as well.
Gosh, it's a busy life.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's usually the same, Richard. It's how can I put it? It's just, when you just meet yourself coming back.
Yes.
And that's been the kind of thing for about the last 6 weeks. I just met myself coming back all the bloody time.
Well, it's brilliant to have you all here. Thank you so much for joining us, and more people are joining the live stream as we go, which is fantastic. And we're going to get to your questions, but I think we were talking about a potential theme. It's quite nice to kick off with a little theme. And last week we were talking about I can't remember what we were talking about, to be honest. Was it the rapid response, or was that?
I think that was 2 weeks ago, wasn't it?
That may have been 2 weeks ago. There we go. So I think you said, Karen, something to do with courts and things.
Well, I don't know. I think because we've got Dr. Barry from Australia, he set up the Common Courts, and I think a lot of us are talking about that and trial by jury. I think it's a really important subject. I don't know what the Clever Clock say, and maybe it's nice to have a theme and see whatever questions come up as well. But yeah, it's just something that came to mind.
So I mean, we have courts, of course, which are all crooked in this country.
Yeah, they're all jury trials, unfortunately.
There you go. Dr. Barry, tell us a little bit how your courts work and how they, just for those people who don't know, which is mostly me as well, the difference and how it's more lawful than perhaps the private bar guild courts that we have.
Well, yeah. Well, trial by jury and jury trial, our juries, they make the decision whether there's a guilt or not guilty, and they impose the penalty. So I think this Karen, my friend Professor Dolores Cattle, she and Mick Stotts is trying to set up that system in England where there's a trial by jury, where the jury make all the decisions. Well, the common law court does that here. First of all, the most important thing is a grand jury, because any man or woman can bring a charge against another. So what we do in that case, if it's just a small case, we send them a summons for mediation, and we have cameras where they come to the office and they try and sort their problems out. But if it doesn't work out, then we go to the court system of 12. But somebody like a crooked cop gets charged, or a politician or something serious, we put it before the grand jury, and the complainant comes in. And we had a lot of people who were injured, had caused loss and harm and injury from bad police, or from somebody else, or they put their case to the grand jury, and the grand jury then go and deliberate. And just like in the movies, they don't come back for hours, and it's really annoying. You're hanging around for them to come back, and they take it very, very serious. And 2 bailiffs go with them to make sure they don't do anything wrong, and a deputy sheriff stays outside the group, and he comes back or she comes back to ask questions of the prosecutor, whoever's laid the charge. Right? I hate those we'll use charges in prosecution just so people understand. But then when they make a decision that the penalty is $70,000, which was for a CEO of a council who sacked somebody during the pandemic BS, they make a decision, $70,000, and so on and so forth. And then what we do then after that, we send the council, the CEO in his private capacity, we send him an invoice, the court orders, and so on. There's quite a lot of paperwork involved, which slows us down a lot. And a second and third, and the final one, if they don't comply with that, we take a lien on their property. Now, all liens and contracts, of course, are common law, so it's a common law lien, and we actually have done a deal with them where they've copped up some money to the injured man or woman, and we let them off the hook. But in serious cases, we send the paperwork to the Hague. Now, the Supreme Court in Melbourne, under the Foreign Judgment Act, which we work under with the Hague, by lawful means, they should actually back us up. But of course, they're all private corporations, and you're wasting your time. But the sheriff, then, we lawfully can go and take liens out or confiscate property. And we haven't done that as yet, but we will do. We're putting black and white cars on the road this year, with the sheriff written on it, and so on and so forth. So we're in the stage now where moving to the next stage, enforcement. And that's the most important part. If you can't enforce your judgments, it makes it really hard. But we have had a lot of success. As I said, we had ministers, police minister and the health minister and two others resign on receiving their paperwork. So they're all, look, all criminals. I used to be a copper, so all criminals and even us, when we're breaking the speed limit, we know that we're going to get caught. And whether we agree with speed limits or not, it doesn't really matter. But the thing is, when you're doing something wrong, you know, and these people did the right thing, they resigned. So England has the history, as this goes back to Alfred the Great, when the Vikings became Christians and stopped fighting among each other. I think Alfred said at the time, let's have a law that's common to all, rich and poor. To the Vikings, mostly I think he was speaking to, because they were really the dominant at that time. And when after 1066, when William the Conqueror took over, he admired the sheriff system, because we all know the sheriff goes back to we have shires here in Australia. So the reef was the head of the shire when it comes to problems. The king, obviously, and King Henry and them endorsed all that, and he became the shire reef. So the Americans took that system to in 1634 to the United States, and the first one was an appointed sheriff from England, and in 1635 they actually started having elections for the sheriffs, and we have the same thing here. To be a sheriff, you must be elected by the people. You only need 100 people to elect you, and then you go before a court of 12, and you take your oath before that court, and each member of the jury sign off on your appointment, which makes you a lawful sheriff. The sheriff then appoints suitable people. They have to go before the next available court and raise their right hand and take their oath of office, and each member of the jury sign off on that, which makes it a lawful court. Now, it's very important to do that, not to make enemies with the enemies. If the police are owned and controlled by the government, and they're all private corporations, and without that thin blue line, which is things are bad enough with it, just imagine if we didn't have them, how bad things were. So instead of making enemies, we made friends with them. A lot of our deputies went round to a lot of the police stations right around Victoria, and thanked them for their service and gave them paperwork about the common law court, and they absolutely thanked us for their service. So we have a great relationship with Victoria Police, and there's no animosity. We help them, and in fact, if we turn up, they say the sheriff's office is here, they'll take care of things, and they leave, because there's an enormous shortage of police, and common law is the law of the land. And I've been, you guys, the statute system is beyond corrupt. It changes the goalposts every time you have a win. And I've been studying law now for about 15 years, and I usually do win if I have a call to help somebody. But of course, you can't talk on behalf, but you can prompt up your the victim, if you like, in how to stand their ground and insist, instead of communicating with the guy up on the perk there on the beak, to talk directly to the prosecutor who's on the same level as you and ask him the questions, full disclosure in relation to the Secrets Commission Act, etc., etc. But common law has got nothing to do with the statute system. We stay well away from it, because, you know, as a man, it doesn't apply to our people. Anyway, I'll let somebody else.
Can I ask Dr. Barry? You mentioned black and white? Sorry, just Barry. You mentioned black and white cars just now. Is there any confusion for the public, for the man and woman on the street who may not be aware of quite who you are and what you do, between the police and you guys? Well,
that's our uniform, which is the same uniform as that is the Los Angeles uniform. Everything is Los Angeles, so we look different. There's no black and white cars here. The police just drive normal cars. So we just want to stand out and be different and be common law officers, right? Not police. We're definitely not. And our uniforms, we could have had blue uniforms and black uniforms, because they're probably more available. The sheriff's uniforms are quite expensive because they're real, and we don't want. We're common law. We're not statute law.
No, but I was just so the public know the difference between you when they spot you, do they?
Oh, of course, yes. We have badges as well. The sheriff's badge there, and then we have the deputies all have badges. They're all metal badges, which they wear on their belts or on their jackets itself. So it's the people do know it, but common law it's like religion. You have a hell of a job convincing people that common law and that they actually have rights because they resist it. But
temporary privileges.
As we're growing, we've been going 4 years now, and we're getting bigger. So
fantastic.
Nobody has rights. We have temporary privileges. Nobody has rights. We have temporary privileges. Simple as that.
Yeah.
In the legal system. Yeah, in the legal system, you only have
in any system, because the common law system is just another system made by somebody else that wrote it and says this is what we feel is best.
Correct.
Oh, no, common law. No, common law goes back to the Ten Commandments and
the Ten Commandments. Basically, if you're looking at that, then you talk about Council of Nicaea and a lot of people that just made up a story. There's still no historical evidence for it.
No, hang on a minute. What's the point of arguing against something that
I'm not arguing about that. I'm just about the false core conclusion of using something like that as your base to build upon. It's false core.
Where it's working, but where it's actually working is in America. So you want to go look at the American systems, and on my channel there, if you can look it up, there's heaps. There's Sheriff Bob was the funniest one. The reporter says, he held his microphone. He says, "What gives you the right to enforce the laws that you think are right?" He says, "I don't enforce any unlawful laws." And then the reporter says, "Well, the Attorney General and the Governor General don't like you." He says, "It doesn't really matter. I'm elected and I don't like them either, but there's nothing they can do about it." So that's the most important part, is that the Sheriff's Office has the authority to enforce the people's law. And that's where it comes into a different, you don't have to argue anything. And when we have ministers stand down when they're charged, there is a fear of common law, and it's powerful. I mean, I'm watching you guys in England. I love that man in uniform that the Bannerman puts up all the time. He's great. But if you use the statute system against them, they keep changing the goalposts. And Sovereign Pete, I've watched a lot of your stuff as well, and it's an uphill battle. But when you charge them in a common law court that's recognized, and we're a recognized sheriff's office now by the Americans, they know that there's nothing they can do about it. We have a jail as well. So this next building will be a jail as well as a sheriff's office.
Gosh, I mean, it sounds like you so much more advanced. As you say, you've only been doing it 4 years. Over here, we Brits seem to be struggling to get any sort of agreement on a way forward. And let alone setting up nice uniforms. We get, as you see in the Bannerman videos, there's lots of lawful people who stand, and they're from all walks of life. But the one thing they don't have is some unity or some visual unity, like a uniform or a badge. Now, Pete, I know you're very much about sovereign individuality as sovereign men. How do you look at these courts situation that Barry's talking about?
Yes, there's some good points in there, and a lot of it I do agree with. But I think what's going wrong is a lot of people disagree, but they don't know the true details of what's going on here. So maybe we could clarify a few things. Okay, so let's try and clarify what a court is and who can hold a court. Only a living, breathing man or woman can hold court. It's got to be someone over the age of consent. So children can't do that because children have no rights. They don't have a jurisdiction. They cannot speak law, and they do not have a dominion, and they are not sovereign until they reach the age of consent. So this is adults. So it's a living, breathing man or woman who will assemble a court. So I like to call it a sovereign's court. So normally what goes on is one person, man or woman, doesn't matter, because men and women are equal and they're both sovereigns. They can make a claim upon another sovereign and say they've harmed me or they've broken a contract in some way. And then what they will do is I'll hold a court, and normally in front of a jury of 12 people who are also sovereign. Now, in this court, The highest ranking people are the actual sovereign. So the one making the claim, the one that the claim is being made upon, and then the 12 jury. Now, I don't even like using the word magistrate or judge because there shouldn't be anyone in there doing judging in any way, shape, or form. So I like to call it like a referee, just someone to organize the event on the day. That's all you need. You can have security guards there. It's not a problem. You can have witnesses there. It's an open court, court of record, all of this, not a problem. But all of those people are below the sovereigns. All right. Now, we've got to understand where authority comes from. Authority comes from the living man or woman. Authority is short for, comes from the word author of. To be alive, you speak your word. You are authors of it, whether it's spoken or written. And that is your law. In your dominion, in your jurisdiction, you speak the law. So when you ask somebody, where does authority come from? They should say, it comes from me. All right. So if someone's trying to claim authority upon me, I'm going to say, where did you get that from? Because I did not give you mine. So as long as everybody understands what a court is, and we understand where authority comes from. Now, a court itself, if you just say magistrates court, well, that's a corporation. All right. Now, corporation, people don't understand what a corporation is. Corporation just means dead entity or legal fiction. That's what it means. It doesn't necessarily mean it's a corporation for business. You can have a regal corporation. That's king and the queen. You can have a religious corporation, i.e. the church, right? And you can have a court corporation. So if it's called magistrate court or supreme court or anything like that, then you know immediately that's a corporation. And I don't care about any of those courts, because if someone's calling me to their court, the first question I'm going to ask is, whose court is it? I want to know their name. And this is the thing about law. If someone's making a claim upon you, they must do it in their name, because if they're wrong, then I can go after them. Okay. So that's the basics of law. Hopefully everyone understands that. Yeah.
There must be somebody there to press the record, essentially. If there's nobody there to press the record, there is no court.
There is no court. That's right. That's right.
But it has to be a verified claim from that person as well, literally. If
Yes.
it's not literally verified with evidence.
Correct.
Sorry, there's no court here.
Correct. Yeah. And I would like to cover that as well. It's absolutely correct. Because when you have these officers of the court, and Dr. Barry is correct, they should be swearing an oath, because they are personally liable for their actions. From the constable to the bailiffs to the processor clerk, all of them are under oath. And it's their responsibility to make sure that the claim is verified, not fraudulent in any way, before they use the court to summon anyone to it, because they will be on the hook. Because if someone summons me to court, say Joe Bloggs summons me to his court, and it's fraudulent, and the bailiffs and the process clerk and they allowed it, and the constables allowed it, they're also on the hook. And now I can go after them as well. So there's a system in place that is supposed to protect the innocent. The modern day courts today, you are guilty, and you've got to prove your innocence. People don't believe that, but it's absolutely true. It's a maritime court. You are guilty, and you've got to prove your innocence.
Even if you say you're not guilty.
Yes.
Literally, yeah. Even if you say you're not guilty, you're guilty in that type of court.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because you're guilty of entering the plea, so you've actually accepted the name.
Correct. And you can't make an appeal either. Correct. Correct.
You can actually say alternatives are available, so I'd like to basically discuss those alternatives.
Yes.
Because there is always an alternative to any plea that you could put in, depending on the circumstance.
Absolutely.
Because I did it in the court that I'm going into. Basically, the court I went into, I said, because of extenuating circumstances, I cannot enter a plea, because there is an alternative reason here for the actual for the breach.
You should only turn up to hear the claim. So you respond to the claim. That's it. I'm not making a plea. I'm not saying I'm guilty. I'm not saying innocent in any way. I'm just listening to the claim. That's it.
And guys, in the statute system, if you accept the summons, the invitation to do business on their vessel in dry dock, the fact you step onto their ship, you become salvage. And if you're salvage, well, we all know what happens to salvage. Our first court case was in a church, believe it or not. It was after the church had finished. We picked out 12 jury members out of about 50, 60 people were there. How we pick a jury is we put 12 numbers in a box, little circle, plastic discs, and about 20 blanks. So somebody goes around and some people pick blanks, and until we get a 12 jury, that's how we pick our jury. And then the jury goes sit over in the jury side of the court, and then they get sworn in. But the statute system, as you're just salvaged once you attend your invitation. So we have a letter of acceptance which we've sent to courts, which is and we've sent it to the factors. So if you address in the court case, correct me if I'm wrong, to the registrar, we send it to the factor and we state the facts, which really upsets them. If you look up the word factor, it has a different meaning. It makes you the principal and then the agent. That word factor, if you look it up in Boreo's dictionary, it's early in the morning, I'm sleepy, or Blackwood's dictionary, the word factor makes you the principal and they're the agent. So it's those words are very important. Words are very important in the statute system, and I'm into. I mean, you are. This is a well. The word is an adjective, and it changes everything after that. So it's grammar is so important in their system, but in common law court, it's just plain and simple English, you know.
Yes.
Who wants to answer that one? Not really. Now, once you step on there, I think Selvert Peters might be more into the courts than I am, although I've been studying law for about 15 years. The thing is, once you're on there, you're salvaged. You got to make them know that you're a sailor in a sense. But and you never argue with the magistrate because he's up on the fifth level. He's in a box and he cannot hear and he cannot see. And the only argument should be directed to somebody on the same level as you, which is the prosecution, right? So you direct all your questions. Your magistrate, with all due respect, I need these following questions answered, and you go for the second and for the third time. And I've done this because a lot of solicitors and barristers don't know the law, and possession is 9/10 of the law. And I asked the solicitor, says, well, who owns the other bit? And he couldn't answer. And for the third and the final time, if the prosecution can't answer this question, I want the case dismissed. Well, the magistrate dismissed the case. And it's just, you just got to fight them with their own BS, because the next time you go back, they'll know you and they'll change the goalposts before you get there. But the paperwork you send there before is very important. Anybody, you're all aware of Bill Turner. Bill Turner is a very good friend of mine. He's about a year younger. We're good friends and we talk quite a lot. Bill is back at university at 70. I'm 78 and he's 76 or 70, something like that. Oh, I'm not saying too old, Bill. And he's back at second year in university doing law again. So,
wow.
Yeah.
So I just apologise there that I muted my microphone and I was talking that the panel could hear me, but the audience couldn't. But they were pretty naive questions, so you didn't miss anything. Before we take your questions, I'm just wary of time. We do want to get to your questions. It'd be interesting to see what the Canadian courts are like from our man Stan. Are you there, Stan?
Yes, the Canadian court system is pretty similar to the court system you guys have. And when you do walk into the court, one of the things that has actually worked is using the uppercase name. And people argue that I'm not the uppercase name, I'm not the fiction, I'm not this. Don't go there, because that name was created on the birth certificate, and therefore it's Crown property. Now, under the joinder rules, they have to bring both parties into court, and they can't bring the joinder name, the uppercase name, because then they're having to bring their own self, their own Crown representative, into court and attack the Crown. In that case, there was a case done that way, and it was dismissed because the person said, you're trying to contract with an infant, a baby at the time of the creation of the birth certificate, so the birth certificate is evidence. And since it was registered in their system, they can't deny it. The case was thrown out.
Well, there's another way of actually doing that as well when you go into the courtroom, by actually saying you're the agent for the principal. So you're just speaking on their behalf.
Yeah, that's
But,
right.
but
So I'm the agent, and that's the principal right there. And the principal is what brought into court. I'm the agent.
yeah,
I'm just basically representative for them.
right, but you want to do that because now you're taking control of the government creation. I would just
No,
say
you're
I'm
not,
the
because I'm just the
beneficiary.
agent. I'm just the agent for it. So it's just like, is the solicitor basically? If I get a solicitor for my actual case, are they as responsible as I am if I get punished? No, they aren't. So you become the agent for the principal.
Well,
That's the
why
way
not
to
let?
get around that.
Okay, but why not let the principals speak for themselves? If you're bringing the
Because
upper
it
case
can.
name to court,
Because it
then they have
can.
to. They sure they can. They can bring their own representative.
No, the principal itself can't talk in the courtroom. It needs it. It needs basically representation or representation.
Right.
We're talking about the legal fiction here, aren't we?
Yeah, the
Yes.
legal fiction.
Yeah,
There is no principals, by the way, in this in the legal world. They're all acting as agents. That's
right.
the scam. There is not a principal there because it's always like Derby City Council is suing you for not paying a council tax. Like, okay, then can you tell me the principal then? Doesn't
They
exist.
can't.
Yeah, but the thing is, the act as it does exist, and if you're
Yes.
acting as it does exist, we still have to fight them in that realm.
Yes.
So you still have to have the language there to actually no, you brought the principal into court and the agent for that principal.
Yes.
Yeah.
But beat them at their own game. It's a big
Yeah, you have to work the magic of the spelling. That's the thing. That's the thing why we're taught how to spell, because you have to learn the magic.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for that. You can see how convoluted this whole business is. No wonder people find it very difficult to understand, but at the same time fascinating to get behind all of it. Because if we can, then hopefully we can win these cases that are brought against us. Karen, should we go to some questions?
Yes, indeed. Yes, it is really interesting. All these different ways. All roads lead to Rome. So we have a question here. Why don't people fight in the courts about ownership? If one can impose the rules and laws on property, then one must be the owner. That's from Toby Henderson. Why don't people fight in the courts about ownership?
I can answer that one. I can answer that one. Right. The reason is you can't. The legal system only deals in titles. Okay. So the legal system is titles and corporations only. Now, hopefully, everybody, if you've been watching Richard Votes for a long time, you understand what ownership is. And if you've listened to me, then you know ownership, ship on the end of any word, maritime law. Basically, it means contract. It means there's more than two parties, or at least two parties involved. So ownership is like a ship with a whole load of rights on it, privileges, licenses, all that equitable title and all that on board that ship. So whenever someone says you own something, the next question you should say, well, do you own all the titles? Do you have a lloydial title, which means you have them all? And the problem is you can't get a lloydial title, meaning all freedom, from the legal system. You can't do it. The reason being is if you're fighting for a title and then they give it to you, what have they done? They've issued it to you. Okay. And if they've issued it to you, then they still have power and authority over said title because they are the issuers.
Yes, because they've performed on that title. That's why it's a performance, which is a payment on the title itself. Yes. So they've actually put performance in, which is a payment in their eyes.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. And I don't want to go too deep on this, but basically the entire legal system is a giant bank and it's just making credit. That's the layman's term, but it's not much more deeper than that. But yeah, this is where people are going wrong. They're saying, oh, I want to claim ownership of my land and I'm going to go and use the legal system. No, you've lost already. Okay, you cannot use the legal system. You cannot use a legal system to gain any freedom, any rights. It only deals with privileges. That's it. There is a way to claim everything, though, but you have to use your own power, your own sovereignty, your own dominion, your own jurisdiction, your own law, your own word. When you know how to do that, you can claim everything, your house, your car, your business, all of it. And, well, the Sovereign Project is here to help. So if you want help on that, get in contact. We'll sort something out.
Just put it in a simpler term. What are you willing to tolerate?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. You shouldn't tolerate anything.
That should be the desire straight. That should be the desire straight away. What are you willing to tolerate? That is what I make as the law, because I make the law as I go in.
Correct. Yes.
Talking about. If I can just say here, that's why it's brilliant. You know, the Richard runs these shows, Lawful Remedies, because it does come down to the individual, the discernment. You have to take that responsibility.
What are you willing to tolerate? Simple as.
Yeah, but you have to do it. I mean, you can take templates and follow courses and everything, but you have to really feel this inside and know what you're doing.
Yes.
You know, and then
Yes,
you
you
get
do.
it when you understand who and what you are. It's easy. It's fun. It can be scary. I'm not dismissing that at all. But you have some. You know, somebody's got your back. We've got each other's backs. But there's something greater than us. So, but yeah, there's no easy way. But
Karen,
Barry, you had your hand up. Yes,
yeah.
hello.
In relation to titles, we've had an eviction on the 23rd and 17th of 27th of March, or sorry, January 23. We decided to issue a certificate of titles from the Common Law Court. Now, because the Land Titles Office here in Australia, in Melbourne and all around Australia, and probably in England as well, are all private companies, right? And fee simple was on the titles which they used to give out, but they don't give you paperwork anymore. So we issued certificate of title, and we went to this woman whose daughter just died, was sent home to die at 33 years old with leukemia, and she was being evicted because of the court didn't pay her rates and stuff, and the bank foreclosed. So we went to the bank manager, and he says, "I'm sorry, nothing I can do about it." And we produced the certificate of title, and it's got all the seals on it, and it's a proper title, recognized. It's a like. Anyway, the manager, he said, "Oh, I haven't seen this before," and he says, "Can you let me talk to the bank?" And we went out and had a coffee, and he called us back in, and he says, "Well, we'll give you 6 months to longer." Anyway, that was over a year ago, so we've done it a few times now. So possession, as we all know, is 9/10 of the law. So in like this pen, say I'm walking out of the shopping center with this pen, the police come and say someone stole this pen. How do I prove that I actually own it? If I'm in possession, 9/10 of the law. What do I need to say I own it? Well, I'll answer that. Just you need a receipt. So the same thing for your property. If you haven't got a title, which they won't give you anymore, it's all digital, so they say. With the certificate of title we've issued, we have stopped 3 potential evictions because the owner of the property produced the receipt, if you like. And that's what I'd like to get that through to Bannerman's people, where a common law court again has the authority to do that, and the sheriff's office has the authority to enforce it. So 3 banks have backed down now because they have a certificate of title.
Well, I hope that answered the question to whomever it was who asked the question that we started with some point ago.
I could probably add a little bit to the receipt thing. This might, okay, because yes, a receipt goes a long way to prove ownership, okay, but you have to dig a little bit deeper, and you've got to say, what have I got a receipt of? So a lot of people who think they own their car, they say, well, I've got a receipt because I bought the car from, you know what I mean? And I go, well, what have you got a receipt of? And if you read it, yes, exactly. It's a title, and it's just a registered keeper. That's what you got. That's what you bought. You didn't buy the car.
We've done that as well. Stephen, we've done the same thing with cars. What we've done, I personally went to the registration place, Vic Roads, and I gave them a master deed. Now, a master deed is a legal deed, and they didn't know what to do with it. And I went to see one manager, then I ended up in the office, and I says, he said, I always wear a body cam, and I said, well, I've given it to you now, you've accepted it. And guess what they've done now in Victoria? Everybody has lowercase when it comes to when they communicate with you now, they've gone to lowercase, and I have my car in my given names, and so does everybody else. So we $20, we give them a master deed, right? And a lot of people have done it. So when they've had no registration on the side of the road, they produce this, and the police did not take their car off them because they are now the owner. And we informed Vic Roads that you're no longer just the keeper, you're the owner as well, and it has worked. So that's something else in the common law court, guys.
Yeah,
well, you can in England, you can actually get the V888 form basically from the DVLA and ask for the manufacturer statement of origin, and they have to give you it, so you can deregister it with the V888 form.
Well,
as long as you word it correctly.
That's not entirely true, I'm afraid.
I've actually seen a couple that have done it.
Well, yeah, I think
using the V888 form.
I think what they're doing is they're using it to get the certificate of conformity. So I don't think, because I had a look at the V888, And it's a form that you fill out if you want to know the details of the registered keeper of a car. This is what some debt collectors use to try and track down, debtors and all the rest of it. And you can use it to get the certificate of conformity. So the manufacturer statement of origin, the DVLA doesn't hold it because it's sold, because the treasury of the said corporation has long gone sold it. You see, the way it works is that when you register a car, the manufacturer statement of origin is like the master deed, if you like, the superior deed. It's the thing that you own all titles, and you do own your car if you've got that document. Well, that is sold. When your car is registered, a certificate of conformity is created. And what a certificate of conformity does is it converts your private car into a vehicle for commerce. And of course, attaches a government number plate to it and all the rest of it. And now you're operating within the UK corporation, and ULEZ now applies to you. So that's what they're doing. The DVLA can't actually get you the manufacturer statement of origin. Oh, remember the word certificate. If you receive a certificate, that just means copy of. So it's not the original document. So if you get a certificate of something, it's copy of from a higher authority. And I don't want a certificate of anything. I want the original title, so which will be the deed, manufacturer statement of origin. But yeah, the VAAA, unfortunately, I don't think it will get you a manufacturer statement of origin. It gets you the certificate of conformity.
I did have a viewer who wrote to them with that VAA8, whatever it is.
Sure.
Yeah, and they came back with a letter and they shared it with me, and it did say that the DVLA didn't have it, that they would have to write to the manufacturer to get the deed of manufacturer, whatever it's
comes
called.
down to the same the idea of banking when it comes to basically asking for the bond back, because if it's sold as a security, you can actually return it as a security. They just lose the interest on the bond. That's all.
Mm-hmm. You're just in their bluff at the end of the day. You're asking for a document that they don't have. And this is the beauty of it, because if you claim it and say, can I have it back? And they say, we don't have it. Then I say, well, it's lost then, isn't it? I'm going to
they don't.
30 days.
Yeah. How do they know you haven't got it?
Well,
then you can make title.
Yeah.
Title now.
When you said about the receipt, can I just go back to that just to clarify one thing? If you're buying a car second hand, and you're buying it in cash in hand, and you or gold or however you want to buy it, in water babies,
jelly babies,
exactly, and they give you a receipt which they write out and say, yes, I'll give you a receipt for the car here.
Yes.
And they fill out all the details. Is that receipt not second-hand car?
Not viable. It's not lawful. It's not legal because
you're only the holder of course. That's it.
Correct. Exactly. You don't, because you're not the original allodial title holder. You don't have the right to sell it. It's like
Steve. There's a good point. A good point in that. If you're not the owner, and this is what a few people have done here, you're just the keeper of the vehicle. So the owner is the authorities, Vic Roads in our case. They sent their fines to the owner, to the CEO in our private capacity as the owner of the Z vehicle. You're responsible for the fine. And some people seem to have got out of it because now they're using the lower case, so they realize that they're not in the position they think they're in. And they have pooed themselves a little bit, but if they're the owner, they're responsible for the fines as well.
Right. Yes. Well, that makes sense. So, what if you don't have that deed of origin of manufacturer, and say you've got a Ford van, let's say it's a very nice black Ford van that you travel about the countryside in, having cups of tea.
Wouldn't be yours, would it?
No, it might not be mine. It could be somebody else's. And you get done for whatever, parking, speeding, or whatever, and you get that fine. Would you then send it to Ford and say, well, it looks like you're the one who still owns it?
Wow, that's a good point. And in fact, I just want to raise this point here, you see, because if you were truly the owner and you had the manufacturer statement of origin, guess what? That means that car's not registered, which means it's not in the jurisdiction of the UK corporation, not in the jurisdiction of the DVLA. ULEZ doesn't apply. 20 miles an hour speed limits don't apply. Parking tickets don't apply.
They're all commercial signs anyway.
Yes. Yeah. So they've screwed themselves, because they see bailiffs can't come after you and seize your car because you say, I don't own it. I'm just a registered keeper. Look, registered keeper, you don't have the right to seize it. But then if you take your car back, then the car's not in the system and they can't touch it.
If you look at it in basic terms, If you imagine your car being a company car, you work for a corporation. If you had an accident in that car, the corporation pays for it. That's how your car works, essentially.
Oh yeah.
One
That's
of the
very good.
things, yeah, one of the
Like it's
things that I did when I was in the UK is I actually wrote to the DVLA and I said, I'd like you to update the records because you are listing this thing as registered keeper and you're the registered owner. That makes you liable. So I'd
And what
like
did
you
they
to correct
say?
the records, and they wouldn't correct it. So I said, okay, fine. The next time the person got a parking ticket, I sent them back their own correspondence and said, here, deal with it. Now, the one problem, though, with that whole system is under the DVLA, because they're the registered keeper, or sorry, the registered owner, they'll claim that they're operating under the Crown and the Crown has the right to seize the vehicle.
Yes.
So now if
Correct.
you say, well, I've got an equitable claim, you've got another problem because you're using their currency. So now who owns it?
yes,
Pete
because
owes
you're
me
tapping into their
$100.
consciousness.
Yeah, Pete owes me 100 pounds, and I turn around and say, well, Richard, I'll buy your van for 100 pounds. So I give Richard the 100 pounds. Who actually owns the vehicle? It's still Pete's money. So this is why we can't use their fiat currency either.
You can't use the Bank of England notes or the Canadian notes. Exactly right. You can't use their notes because they're the ones promising to pay for the car. So
Right.
the only way to own anything is by using gold or silver. That's how you buy something in
But
trade.
then you got a problem there too, because how did you pay for the gold or silver?
No, that's a good point. But I never bought it. I exchanged.
Now you
That's
can
how
do
you-
something.
Yeah,
Yes.
Well,
I
just on
exchanged.
that note, if anybody wants to support the show, just to let you know that you can actually buy a voucher on the link on the thing, and what it does is it transfers it to silver and sends silver, and I get silver through the post if you want to support the show and keep it going, and that way I've not bought it, and it's a donation. It comes to me, and there's a great big heap of gold. Oh no, it's not there yet. We're just waiting. We're waiting for that, so I can divvy it out. But anyway, shall we go to another question? Because I'm Karen.
Linking on to what you talked about receipts and stuff. Jerry plays asked. He says, let's say we're shopping. Can you pay the subtotal and write tax refused or withheld on the back of a receipt? Quite an interesting question. You can do what you want, really, but what do you think? What do you think, Tony? You've been sitting there quietly. What do you think about that one?
Well, I think you can because there's no lawful obligation to pay tax anyway.
Bingo.
But,
Will they
we're nodding on
accept it?
that.
Will they accept it?
Probably not because they're ignorant of it. You know,
Yeah.
And you can do that in a cafe. You can refuse to pay the VAT and just say, you know, there's no obligation for me to pay the VAT. So knock that off, and I'll pay for the coffee. You know, and
because presumably you could go in and say, and it may be the case that you could turn up to when you're filling your lovely black van that you travel around the countryside in occasionally and have cups of tea and stuff. You're filling it up with diesel. You could say, actually, I'm exempt from any tax, so therefore I've worked it out on my calculator, and I only, instead of the 60 quid that appears to be in there, I actually only owe you 10.
Yeah.
Well, if you are VAT flat rated, you'll get a number to actually say that you are flat rated, and you can show them that number, and they'll discount it.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. But just to add one point, if your car is a vehicle and it's now registered with a license plate on it, that's the contract, and that is why you've agreed to pay VAT and duty on the fuel. That's how they trick you, because you chose to register it.
Can you turn up without the number plate on? You just unbolt it before you go into the petrol station.
That'd be fraud.
Yeah.
It's
No,
not-
you've
there is
registered
no-
the vehicle, and then so
Yeah,
therefore
there is-
you've registered it, and then you drive it on their road, and so you're paying for a benefit privilege by that application. Now, if you turn around and take your license plates off, they'll say, hey, there's a vehicle with no license plate. So then they'll impound you for a non-registered vehicle or non-licensed vehicle. You did that when you applied for a driver's license. And then you registered the vehicle, so now you're driving government property. The plate's identified as such, and there you go.
Yeah, when you apply for your license, this is where the contract goes in, but there's a thing in law called a universal mistake. So if you send the correct paperwork under the universal mistake at the time of the contract, you were not given full disclosure. You can get out of a lot of that old stuff, but the certificate of the master deed they have to accept that because it's their system. And here, as I said, they're now communicating in the lower case. But you've got to know the law. The trouble with law is knowing a little bit is not enough. I mean, I haven't passed the bar. I mean, and I'm still studying because you think you know everything, and then all of a sudden, sober people come up with something. You say, "Oh my God, I didn't know that," and then you go back again, and you're back to square one. I spend a lot of time in the dictionaries because that's where look up the word factor, because everybody thinks the word factor is the factor of the matter. It's got other meanings. Everything has, well, the legalese have changed the whole thing into BS, but you've got to know their BS and beat them in their own system.
Isn't the easy route? I don't know how easy this is, but when you listen to Pete, it's all about jurisdiction. But if you don't give them the jurisdiction, if you stay out of their system, say, well, I'm not this legal entity, I'm not, all of this. I'm just a living man. I'm minding my own business. It's got nothing to do. I'm not doing commerce. Leave me alone. Is it not more simple and just say I'm not?
In theory, correct. You are correct. But unfortunately, we've all contracted. But like Barry mentioned, there was no informed consent. This is why the entire system is null and void, because you didn't know anything when you were registered at birth, and when you took out a passport and you took out a driver's license and you opened a bank account and all the rest of it, all these things that you do. I mean, just think about it. How many forms have you filled out where it's asked for the surname and your national insurance number? And you've gone, okay, and you filled it out. Well, you're contracting again.
But if that's all null and void because it's not the meeting of the minds and not full disclosure and on all those things that a contract's supposed to have, then surely that's it. That's your way. You just go, well, I'm sorry, that's not a proper contract.
Yes, absolutely correct. Because this is what people need to start doing, is challenging the obligation. I think Tony mentioned this earlier. Stop looking for a way out. Don't do appeals. Don't do petitions or anything like that. It's head on. And you challenge this and go, hang on a minute, am I obligated? I want to see the original contract. You're absolutely right. But if you're just on your own, that's a massive fight. But if you're part of a network of sovereigns and there's a few million of you globally, wow, now we can get things done.
But it is getting to that point.
It is. Yeah.
What's very annoying about the whole system is the fact is it's pure fiction now. I've lost the train of what I was going to say, but I'll get back to it. Okay. Somebody else take over for a second.
I think Tony wants to have a word. Go ahead, Tony, buddy.
It's and don't get me wrong, my mindset is sovereign through and through. So really and truly, I don't need any paperwork. I don't need anything. I'm a peaceful living man, causing no harm, no injury, no loss. So that's it. However, because I'm challenging the corporate policy holders and pushers, I've gone through the legal system, and I've got two affidavits there, right? And they've both been notarized by a notary public, which again is all within the legal system. The hardest bit for me now, well, I've got one more document to get notarized, and that's my security bond, which I've been working hard at, and I'm hoping to get it notarized on Tuesday morning next week. The hardest bit then is to get it filed on the court rep file, or put it on the court file, because apparently the courts won't. They're trying to prevent you from doing it. They have an obligation to do it, but they're not letting you. So when I've got me security bond notarized next Tuesday, I will be trying to file my 3 documents on the court file.
I'd say, just say, if you actually get in touch with the Palace of Peace at The Hague and declare it to them, they can give you the paperwork to actually show that you've declared it, and you can actually give that then to the Foreign Office.
Can we get a link for that, or can I write that down?
Well, it's just a Palace of Peace at The Hague.
Palace of Peace at The Hague.
Yeah, which is the actually highest court literally on the planet, essentially.
Okay.
And like I said, they can actually
Have you
accept
done
your
that, Gary?
paperwork on the public record. No, I've did. Well, if you look on, I think it's BitShoot, basically you'll see that there's a group of people that did a court trip to The Hague to actually declare their own sovereignty, and they actually handed in the paperwork and they actually filed it.
Just the Palace of the Peace, just right.
The Palace of Peace at The Hague, which is the administrative side of the judiciary, essentially, and it's the highest court, literally on the planet, The Hague.
Fantastic.
An affidavit.
If you do that, can you let us know if you're going to do that? I'm sure you are probably going to do that. Will you?
I am going to do that. Yeah. Well, like I say, I've already got the documentation for. So as soon as I get the documentation finished, because I've got to get all the, obviously, wording correct to do it, and then I've got to get it notarized, obviously, and sealed. So as soon as I've done that, like I say, I'll be going myself to The Hague. I must get a cancellation flight and just go there and do it.
Yeah, affidavits.
That's what I think the public are looking for, aren't they? The fact that people have gone out and done stuff, and then they've got a result. They've got a little bit of paper or whatever it is that we need to say.
It's not as much just a little bit of paper.
Leave me alone.
It's more that it's been filed and it's been recognised, and they've actually publicised that.
No, I understand that.
Because you've got any declaration, you can't just go, I'm declaring it, and that's done. You have to make it public as well, and you can only do that on the record.
Yeah, when you're writing affidavits, guys, you're writing an affidavit. A lot of people make the mistake to say I and then their name. This is the biggest mistake you can make, because you're ready. The rest of the paperwork's not what the paper is written, or the ink is written anyway. You know what I mean? It's early in the morning for me. Anyway, you can start it off at I am, which comes from the Bible. I am John Michael, and then the deceased estate in brackets, right? With the knowledge of fact, because affidavits, a lot of people go, I am John Michael Smith. And of course, then the whole thing is
they've just said they're the legal fiction.
Yeah. So I am is very, very important, as it comes from the Bible. I am Jesus. I am, and then your given names, and always put your family the family name, what they're trying to chase up, in brackets, because it's not part of the document. I think that's pretty important. We've done here. I helped a lot of people do that, and it changes everything. The paperwork. All the paperwork that goes, if you look on the website at the end, there's a paperwork I put up for somebody, the letter of acceptance, the summons that comes to you, and on the conditions are in there. So have a look at that. That will help a few people, and it's got to be, there's 3 or 4 signatures down the bottom, which means something different as well. But the affidavits are really an affidavit. The word affidavit starts with a vowel, which makes it not worth the paper it's written on either. So. Somebody else carry on.
Can I ask about that name thing? Just to butt in there, because if you've got your legal fiction, which is all based on your birth certificate, and it's the Crown copyright and all this nonsense that we know, can you just not? Doesn't really matter. You could say I'm Barry from Bournemouth. That might not be your given name by your parents, and it might not be what you called you at school. But can you not just be anything? Because people often say to me, "Oi, you Baldy," and I could say, "Yes, I'm Oi, you Baldy today." In this moment now, I am Oi, you Baldy. Later on, I might be Oi, you fat git.
You use the term now time, not the present time. In now time. I am John Michael, and the deceased estate. I think it's very important that you write in. You're there. I hate representing on behalf of the deceased estate, because represent means a different thing altogether. So I am, and then given names and the family name in brackets, because if it's in brackets, it's not part of the document. So you're not actually acknowledging that you're representing that particular deceased estate. Because, as I said to a magistrate one time, actually Bill Turner did a better one. He took a mirror out of his pocket and he went, and he said to the magistrate, "Are you trying to communicate with my image? Because I'm a living man, and if you can get my image to answer you and do the same as that, I will contract with you, Your Honor." And he
fantastic.
Out of the court.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's great.
Can I just add a little bit about the name, the thing? Okay, now, technically, you have the right to call yourself whatever you want, okay? You doesn't matter. However, your name should be very important to you, and it's something you build over time. So your name is supposed to stand for something. So when people hear your name, they go, yeah, that's a straight guy. You can trust him. He's honorable and all the rest of it, right? So your name is supposed to mean something. So I don't want people throwing their name away and saying, I don't want to have nothing to do with it. And don't forget.
But isn't it just a label?
Well, it's a label that's yours. Okay. It's supposed to be you. You know, I mean, if none of us had labels or names, it'd be very difficult to communicate. So
can I just say something there, Pete, about the name itself?
Yeah.
It says when it comes back to the birth certificate is seen as a type of brand, and a brand under Italian law essentially is a physical disfigurement, so they can take you as a slave because now they have your body as property.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, it's brand, yeah.
Branded.
So, but it's you're branded with it. So, and the birth certificate itself is a mark branded. of that. Yeah. So therefore, under Italian law, which comes from basically Israel and Sumeria and Mesopotamia, is where the origin of body as property came from. Under Italian law, basically your name is seen as a physical disfigurement.
Mm-hmm. I get just sorry to interrupt you on there. If people like Michael Caine, that wasn't his real name.
Morris Micklewhite.
Exactly. So I mean, but he used a different name to become his label in the profession that he was in, and probably most people would just in the end called him that, and he probably didn't go around, only his family and what have you. So does it really matter that, you know, if you've made something up, it's not the given one that you were born with?
Yeah, I mean, it depends. Actually, we'll touch on the default thing, because the default isn't your name, all right? It's ecclesiastical, and that gives you a clue. It means it's controlled by the church. So change your name by ecclesiastical deed poll, all you're doing is changing the corporate name that they issued to you in the first place. So people think, I'm going to use ecclesiastical deed poll to change my name. It's not your name. So can I just try and clear this up? Because the name thing. Now, the name, right? The name can be pronounced and it can be spelt exactly the same, okay? But if it comes from me, that's my name. If it comes from the legal system, it's their name. Does everyone remember the film Terminator? And he comes back in time and he goes through the phone book, doesn't he? He goes, Sarah Connor, Sarah Connor, Sarah. Name's the same. The women are different. Okay. So this is why you should always challenge the source of the name. When someone's trying to apply a name onto you, where are you getting this name from? If they say, oh, we got it from your driver's license, that's not my name. It's my corporate name. It's a birth certificate. It's not mine. Okay. My name is my given name. And by the way, I want a given name, because my given name was given to be my mother and father. And of course, it's got my father's last name, the family name, which has, weight to it. And I want to carry on that tradition because, my dad was an honorable man. I want to carry on, from his teachings. So I want to give that name some value. But that is a given name and a family name. It is not forenames. It's not first names. And it's definitely not a surname. So hopefully,
but you might not like. I mean, if you would say came from the Pratt family, and many people, many people have, you might go actually, or if you come from the Smith family or the Jones family, you may want to sort of say, God, in this town there's 25,000 Smiths. I just don't want to be a Smith. I don't want to be a Smythe. I don't want to be a Smith. I actually want to be Mr. Collywoggle. So, for whatever reason, surely that's a choice of you and the people who will adhere to that name and sort of call you that and not call you Oi Baldy instead of Mr. Collywoggle.
Absolutely correct. Again, you have the right to name yourself because it's your word. You are the author of it. So you are the author of your name. So you don't have to take your given name or your family name. Say, no, thank you, don't want it. I'm going to create my own. And you do not use the legal system. People keep going, oh, I'm going to use the legal system. I'm going to change my name in the legal system. You've lost the game already.
Yep. I was sent a letter from a guy that says, I'm going to fix this liability problem. And what he ended up doing was he said, I'm going to use the deed poll thing and change my name. And I said, that's not going to work because you're still registered in their system. And this goes back to something that I brought forward earlier, and I wouldn't mind the panel's input. I said, okay, if you're going to do this, I see a flaw in it, and I'll explain the flaw. Some people say, I'm going to put my property into a trust. Let's just say it's your house. Well, I said, that's all fine and good, but it's not going to work because at the end of the day, the property now belongs to the trust. And at the end of the day, they're going to put a lien or a penalty or a claim or whatever against the property. And you still have to answer for it. So what did it serve? Because now they're going to go after the trust and you're responsible for the trust in one way, shape, or form or another. Therefore, you end up paying the bill or dealing with the problem. Even if I appoint Pete, I said, good, I'll get him to be the trustee. That's fine and good. But at the end of the day, it still affects me because I'm the beneficiary. Right? Now, in the terms of a trust, since we're talking about trust, a separate trust like the government one set up with your birth certificate, you can't claim those funds or those pot of gold at the end of the rainbow because you're only the beneficiary and the trustee gets to dictate what happens, whether you're entitled or not. So how can we use the trust to protect our property if we register it in their system? We can't, unless somebody's got an answer to that question.
Nice.
Can't you be the executor of that?
No,
as you would with
because then you're responsible. So if I'm going to attack your trust, Richard, and I make you out to be the trustee or the executor, I say, okay, Richard, you're the beneficiary and you're the executor. So I'm still going to hold you responsible.
Yes, but the executor would say, well, in that case, you are the trustee of it and you can pay it. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
No, because now you're transferring the title back to them. You want them to be the trustee, so they have to fix it.
Under the presumption of law, though, you cannot stand in an executor and beneficiary position.
That's right. That was where I was going next. You can't be both.
You can't be both. Yeah, because it's an assumption. It's both assumptive positions. So you can't actually stand in both positions. Because which master are you serving?
That's right.
Yeah, that's it. That's a good one. I did that to a prosecutor. I says, you here on behalf of the Crown. This is a traffic thing, of course. And he said, yes, Your Honor. And I says, thank you very much. You've just changed positions. You're now paying the fine. So if there's a fine imposed by the court, it's your problem. You just admitted that you're here because I am the Crown. Remember where the word crown comes from? Crowning, crown. A court, and the courts, of course, there's no. Well, in Australia we don't have. Australia is a republic, by the way, since 1986. A lot of people don't realise that we're not even part of the Commonwealth anymore, and they haven't told the royal family yet because it's a big secret. There was an act passed in 1986 that removed the court system from England and removed everything, the Crown. So Australia is an unlawful republic.
I'd like to move on, if that's okay, to some of the questions that have gone up. And Julia's passed me one here from Kenneth Noel Curran, who says, what can be done having received a High Court writ from an outstanding utility company?
Well, look at the paperwork first. So check it. A lot of people are making assumptions that they're receiving genuine court documents when in fact they're not. And even solicitors have been caught out doing this. Let me try and explain a little trick that they do, these solicitors and these debt collectors. So one of the things they will do is they will put in a claim upon you. Anyone can do this. Anyone can litigate against another person. You can go down to the courthouse, make a claim. The court will log it and give you a claim form and go, there you go, it's been logged. Nothing wrong with that. But what these solicitors and bailiffs are doing are then sending this claim form to the person they're going after and says, oh yeah, you've got a claim made against you and all the rest of it. And people are thinking, oh my God, this isn't an official document. I better pay up and all the rest of it. Doesn't mean anything. It just means a claim has been placed. That's all it is. But what you'll find is that claim will get retracted the day before any court date happens because they've got no evidence to back it up. So they're using a lot of fake paperwork. There's another thing as well. Double check the language. First of all, if it's all in boxes and all the rest of it, you know something's not right. If the documents you're receiving isn't signed by a magistrate, it hasn't got a court seal on it, you know something's not right here. And if it says writ, go and check it out. If it says claim, so sometimes you have a claim number. You know, claim number. Well, is that a claim number from the court or is that their internal claim number? Another one, they'll go case number. They'll say case number. Go and check that out. So you can actually phone the court up and say, I've got a case number here, XYZ, da 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 da. Can you give me the details on it? And if the courts turn around and say, we've got no record of this case number, you know you're receiving fraudulent documentation. And then what you'll do, because you've checked the documents out, you found out it's all fraudulent. Now you make a claim upon them saying, I'm receiving fraudulent documents, and use the N1 claim form for 10 grand. Hopefully that's answered it.
Easy. Thank you very much. Next question.
The other problem, guys, the other problem with this is what council tax does. They'll put in a claim form number, right? And the courts approve the claim, but like Pete said, you don't have a case against you yet. You haven't been pronounced guilty. So in the case of that writ, you now have that on fraudulent conveyance, and they mailed it to you, so therefore they got mail fraud. You're in violation of about 6 or 7 violations just with that alone. And so now you could technically bring that back to the court and say, I want to talk to a magistrate or a judge. I want this thing void because it's fraudulent. And you guys are now aiding and abetting criminal activity. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
They have to throw it out.
Stands right.
Use their own paperwork against them.
Fantastic. Brilliant stuff. Karen, have you got a question?
I have got a question. And can I just say something? When you talk about, you know, we're our own entity and crowns and stuff like that. When the baby's born through the birth canal, they say the head, it crowns. So I guess that's another one of these words, isn't it? So the baby's crowning as he's coming out. And then you also have a crown where your hair goes around, because my son, he had 2. And he came, when he was little, he said, oh, I'm 2 kings, because he was too young to understand. But, you know, you have the crowns of your head. So all these words, it's amazing when you start learning what they've done, how they have tricked us. I just wanted to throw that in. But yeah, a question here. When we talk of putting the council on notice, what are we putting them on notice for exactly? And do I put the man and the woman who signed whatever the documents on notice? Do I put them on notice as well?
Absolutely.
So
because you can't
put your council on notice for
all the violations. All the violations. There's no court file number. The court is hired by the council. You're to deliver your paperwork to the council, not to the court. You don't file a paper within the court. You leave it up to council.
It's bulk administration.
That's a conflict of interest.
It's also bulk administration, so there's they actually don't stick with the civil procedure rule of actually allowing you to address, literally address that actual claim.
That's right. You haven't seen the claim. You haven't seen any evidence, and yet you're done in bulk. And sometimes you're told not to appear in court. You don't have to appear. That's also wrong. They can't do a court hearing in private. All the things that are outlined, what they're doing wrong, and you bring that to the court and say, how is this lawful? What gives you the exemption? So there are people that fill out a DSAR, or they fill out a Freedom of Information request. And a lot of people make the mistake because they ask the Freedom of Information people for an opinion. I don't want an opinion. What I want to do is I want to say, these are the violations, and what gives them an exemption from this, what gives them an exemption from this, from this, from this, from this, and they can't answer it.
Well, and you also add to that, the government, Local Government Finance Act is not all the rules for court. So you also bring that up, that they can't justify it by the Local Government Finance Act because it's not rules for court. It's not a rule for court, I'm sorry.
Correct.
That's right, and it violates the Local Government Act of 1888 and the Bills of Exchange Act and the Bill of Rights.
Yes,
Those are all things that we've covered on your show, Richard.
I just want to add just quickly before we go past this question. If you go on the Sovereign Wiki, there is a council tax remedy with all of this information, all these acts and statutes that are being violated with templates, all for you. All you got to do, it's free, download it. It's all there ready to go. And you can use that, and you can go after the Section 13A officer and the Section 151 officer. And you go, what the hell's going on? You've got employees working for the council that are committing fraud. Some of it is 7 years imprisonment. Get it sorted. So,
especially when they're using liability orders that was taken out of law in October 2003.
Yeah, and that's the Sovereign Project Live. Live.
Yeah, that's the website, and there will be a button on there that says Sovereign Wiki, and you click on there, and there's a whole load of free stuff that people have put together, some remedies, some information. There's a whole page on DUNS numbers. So if you want to know your council's DUNS number, it'll be on the Sovereign Wiki. So.
Now, some people say that the DUNS number doesn't help you because even governments can have a DUNS number. So
there's a reason for that, though. because the actual term and condition of it is if you are a registered company in the UK or Ireland, you are automatically issued a DUNS number, and you can only be issued if you have a company house number. Therefore, no individual can actually apply to have one.
Yes.
So
Exactly.
there is a stipulation there.
That's right. So now that we use that, we can use the Clearfield Doctrine and say you have no more authority than any other company.
Exactly.
Thank you for filling in the missing piece.
Sorry. It does say in the terms and conditions.
The best way to solve all those problems, because as men and women, the statute system and their BS does not apply to a man or a woman. So why fight them in their system? Why keep banging your head off the same wall trying to get a different result? You've come from the land of law, from the common law, which is people don't understand and for some reason don't adopt. You have the sheriffs, the Shire Reef started off there, which you only got to look at the American system. And if you go to my channel, there's quite a few ones where there's a lot of sheriffs on there and what they've told the government to go and take a hike. You go after these people, these councils, the CEO, in his private capacity as a living man or a living woman, whoever it is, and you charge them in that capacity and you take them into a common law court that you actually have control over, put them before a grand jury initially, a jury of their peers, and you carry on from there. I can't understand why people in this day and age, the people with knowledge, are still banging their head off the same wall in that statute system, which you could spend. I've been to the Supreme Court years ago when I was started out and all this, and you spend a whole week and you're winning, and then you go back the following week with the same system, and as if you didn't exist. It's just what all you said last week when you were winning, they just come and laugh at you. So you don't, as living men and women, common law has simple principles, humanity.
Wasn't just before you do, Pete? Wasn't that my point earlier on? I said, all these acts and statutes, surely they don't apply to living men and women. So why the hell are we bothering with all of that?
Yeah, let me explain. Okay.
No, can I just add there, though, Pete, before you start?
Okay, go ahead.
If in my experience, if you do not push back, they will not make a mistake.
That's true.
It's like I found that with the bailiffs. It's like I've pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. They've made now 3 mistakes. They've made 2 false statements, essentially, and now they've trespassed on the actual property. And basically, if you push back, they start to make mistakes.
Yes, you have to push back.
But then
you have to.
If you're pushing back, Gary, and they make mistakes, then you're taking their mistakes into the legal system to challenge them.
Because you're fighting them on their terms. That's the only way in guerrilla warfare it works. Literally, in guerrilla warfare, the very first rule is you take their technology and use it against them. So this is why I've learned all of this. So because that is their technology, essentially.
But hang on a minute. That's a very interesting point. Surely, when if we remember our history, when Caesar came over in AD, BC, whatever it was, 53, whatever it was, and he came over with their legion of people. The ancient Britons with their blue suede shoes all over the blue suede, not their shoes, they didn't fight the same tactics. They were doing different tactics. They didn't do it wasn't like a pitch battle meets another pitch battle. Oh, it's the pikers now, so we'll do the piking thing. Wasn't the whole point that in guerrilla warfare you do a completely different thing? You get them from the bushes and from here as their
I'm talking about the first rule, Richard. I'm not talking about any other strategy that is in the rule-based system of guerrilla warfare. I'm just talking about that first rule is what is their technology? I get that technology and I use it against them as my strength and actually make it their weakness. That's the point of it.
So
okay,
let me jump in as well. I've got to explain why we're using the legal system. First of all, we're calling their bluff. That's the main reason we're using it, because they claim that they're following all these rules. So we go, fair enough. You say that you're following these rules. We're going to test you upon it, and we're going to find out you're not following these rules. So when enough people wake up and realize, hang on a minute, the people who make the rules up aren't even following it, then the legal system itself collapses because everyone loses faith in it. And this is basically how ancient Rome collapsed. However, there's another reason. if you actually want to go after somebody and you want to get paid out, okay, you want to sue them for damages, you've got to understand that you can't actually sue a living, breathing man or woman. You've got no tools to do it. And every single man or woman on this planet alive doesn't actually own any assets. So you can't actually claim from them. Remember, no one owns their car. They don't own the house. They don't own the children. They don't own the business. None of it. So everything is in titles. So if I want to say, for example, sue somebody and I want to go after their car, I'm not going to sue the living, breathing, although my paperwork will say so. I will know that I'm going after their birth certificate corporation, and I'm going to hit them with a lien that operates within a legal system that can be applied to all the legal titles within the legal system. So I know I'm walking into the casino. I know that the casino could well be rigged, but I'm going to sit down and I'm going to play their game on my terms. So that's basically what we're doing with using acts and statutes. But I just want to add one more thing. You should never apply acts and statutes to yourself or constitutions or anything like that, because you are then putting yourself in that jurisdiction. So what you should be doing is taking their rules and applying it to them and go, aren't you breaking your own rules? That's how you do it. Yeah.
And the reason we have to do that is because how else are we supposed to get a judgment? If we just say, okay, the statute's to nothing applies to me, and I want to go after Pete for something, I guess I need his address and a baseball bat, because I can't get a remedy any other way. So
is that not where but is that not what Dr. Barry's talking about, that you use the common law, which is the law of men and women, rather than the legal system? Or have I got that wrong?
No, that's correct.
You got it right, but you have to get it recognized.
Yeah, it's not big enough yet. There's no authority behind it, unfortunately.
Correction, there is. You've only got to look at the American system. I mean, this is it's like religion. It's get you guys to change gears is impossible, and we have the same thing here with people as well. There's lots of little groups set up here, and they're all going down. They call it rabbit holes. I mean, if you go down a rabbit hole, the first going to get you. You know, the thing is, it's working in America with the sheriffs. I don't know where you guys do a lot of research, but I've been over there. I spent a lot of time with the sheriffs and with the police, and spent a lot of time in the police in America as well. So I have a history of police and army, right? Now, the thing is that if you stay out, why would you get involved in magistrates? You can actually arrest a magistrate, and if you're a sheriff, you can take him into custody if you have the jail set up. You can arrest a member of the police force. The police force, you can actually, a sheriff can deputize a member of the police force, and the police will, and they know the law, they will go along. And in Victoria, our police here that know about it will go along with it. And if we come to a case like where Bannerman's are there with the evictions, we as sheriffs can deputize a posse to back up all those people there, become a part of a posse, which goes back to England as well. Remember, stop thief? It all goes back to there. You can deputize a posse to stand outside, and that's lawful. The legal system has no authority over lawful. And this is what I have been battling for years to get that message across, and it's only in the last year or so that now people are saying, yes, we're going to have it. We will have a jail here, sheriff's office, and a jail written on it, and we will have some cells in there, and we will put people in it, and we will transfer them if necessary to the prison, if that's what will happen as well. But that is the law, and that is the law of the land, and England is where it all started. So guys, just get out, fight the statute system in this by all means, but at the same time go into the common law court, set it up and run it properly, and you will win. Do it on both attack from all roads, like all roads lead.
Isn't that what Dolores
point something out though? That's different in the UK, because that's okay actually saying about the United States and Canada and stuff like that, and UK being the start of that. You've got to remember that UK has moved on from that, absorbed common law into legislation, hence why we have to look for legislation to find where the common law exists, so we can fight them. So we've got to extract it back.
They did the same thing here. We had Bob Hawke, when Bob Hawke took over here as Prime Minister. He's dead now, thank God, because him and Whitlam were the first Labour Party that got back in since. Whitlam was the first Labour Party to take over here since 1948. And the first thing, they got rid of the Queen, and Hawke came in and took an oath to the Queen, but then got rid of the Commonwealth. So it doesn't really matter. The law, if nobody's above the law, and common law is the law of the land. The statute law is the law of the sea, and it has no place on land.
And is that not what?
Hang
on. Is that not what Dolores Cahill is trying to introduce with the trial by jury and all of this in the UK? Not in the UK, I know.
Dolores. Dolores is trying to trial by jury. She's trying to organize trial by jury, and that won't work. You see, the thing is, I don't know why people resist common law, because it's common bloody sense. And if you get off your asses, instead of fighting and banging your head off that same brick wall every day, and set up a common law court with the sheriffs, which comes from the Shire Reefs, you start that system up. By all means, fight and study law and fight them in the system. Like Steve was saying, you still fight them there, but you can take them to another system outside their control and take care of them lawfully.
That does sound, I mean, I'm very much swaying over to Dr. Barry and all of that, being out of the acts and statutes and all of that. But I mean, one thing that always baffles me is, how are we as men and women, or anybody, even those citizens in the system itself, how are you supposed to know what the rules are if there are millions of them, and you see behind solicitors libraries and libraries? How do you know that you've actually broken any misdemeanor infringement or whatever? But you can't possibly live. But if you have the sort of natural law where do no harm, cause no loss, and cause no injury, it's so simple.
Yeah, exactly, Richard. Humanity, caution, and prudence are the three principles of common law. Humanity.
Did you say prunes?
Caution. Yeah, well, look up the word what prudence means then, right?
Oh, prudence. Sorry, I thought you said prunes. Sorry,
no, well, prunes as well, right. You usually get them, and that gives everybody the runs. But anyway, no, humanity, caution, and prudence, do no harm. And they're the simple principles of common law. And this is what annoys me sometimes. It's so bloody simple that people will argue against it. They will fight against it. It's like religion. Remember, Catholics and Protestants, Muslims and Christians and stuff. Now, again, we have the Reserve Bank, which charges interest, which is absolute BS, where if you're a Muslim, you get a loan. And I don't know whether you know how it works. It's very simple. The Muslim bank pays for the property, and they add on like $250,000 to the property, and you can pay it back over a month or 35 years. There's no interest. We're mugs because we go along with the system instead of fighting it lawfully and simply.
But it's just like I say, in the UK, unfortunately, it's already a known factor in the Parliament that common law was absorbed into legislation. So they see common law, this is what I'm saying, just please hear me out on this. They see common law as an archaic rule that no longer applies. So you've got to get it recognised. Unless we get a form of dominion to actually have enough people to give it authority. We do it in England. I'm just saying in England. Just hear me out on this. This is why we actually have such a battle.
I remember when I became a special constable, and they were teaching us the law. It was common law at the time. And it says a lot of these laws now are really out of date. You think about 1760 and all this stuff. So the statute system is going to replace all these silly old laws. Well, those silly old laws are still used today in Parliament. Parliament privilege comes from back from common law. So it's when it suits them. The whole thing is fiction, and unless you get off your asses and say, look, we've had enough of this fiction, we will fight you by all means in your fictional system, but we'll go back into our law, God's law, natural law, we're going to call it, and we will take care of you in that law. People power, and unless you have, it's the power of the people need something to have the power through, and that's through the sheriff's office and common law.
And is the common law that Gary's talking about sort of what's confused as case law, that you have a law between two people, and then whoever wins, and then they go, all right, okay, we'll write that on the statute, but that now becomes a law because two people argued the case and one won, and that's the situation.
They've done the same thing here. They've done the same thing here. Bob Hawke, as I said, he combined common law with statute law and case law. that is just another cloak and smoking mirrors to hide the real reality of law itself. It's common law has got nothing to do with the statute system. They have incorporated it, and they use common. Even now that you'll find, we have a common law assault, but they removed common law out of it. They say common assault because they don't want to mention common law.
Ah.
Yeah, but say, I know, like, our sheriff of Hull was an ex-Conservative politician, Peter Mandelson. So when you go to that sheriff, there's no way they're going to listen to it and recognise it. That's the problem in England. They've positioned their people there, so they don't recognise it anymore. That's the point.
Oh, not in the statute system.
That's the half the battle. That literally is half of the battle in England. That we're trying to get
we could bring it back,
point.
couldn't we, Gary? Couldn't
I'm
we
not
bring
saying
that back?
I'm not saying we couldn't, but like I say, we need the dominion. We need the people. We need the authority of the people behind that. Unless you have that, you've got nothing.
Is that
Yes.
Rob the Rack?
Sorry, go ahead, Richard.
No, I was just going to say that over here there's a chap called Rob the Rat Catcher. He's been on my show several times. And he's been enlisting peace officers. They take an oath, and he's tried as using common law, as I believe that Dr. Barry is using it, to arrest magistrates for malfeasance, and corruption, and all the other things. Unfortunately, somewhere along the line it backfired, and he ended up in prison for a few months. He's out now, thank goodness, and he'll be back on the show to tell us what happened. But I mean, there are people trying to do this, aren't there?
No, they've done it wrong, Richard. This is where I watched that guy, and I spoke to Karen, one of the girls who was taking the oath, and she wouldn't take it. She said, "No, this is common law," and he said, "Oh no, it's not common law. You can't elect sheriff, or you can't just be a sheriff. You have to be elected by a number of people, and then you've got to take your oath before, as I said earlier on, before a jury of your peers, and get sworn in, and then you become a sheriff. You can only have one sheriff in one area, a municipality or a shire, or you've got to have a bit of distance between, or an area, and that sheriff then elects deputies. And that's the system. You can't just keep making people, I'm a sheriff, and handing out pieces of paper. They have to take their oath to gold in a court of common law, and then it's got the authority, the same as the Americans do. I mean, the Americans sheriffs are elected every 4 years. Some stay in for 40 years in the job. They get elected all the time because they're doing a good job. A lot of Los Angeles police, which I know very well, they retire very young after 21 or 22 years, and they go out to the country, and they become deputy sheriffs, and they get elected as sheriffs in small towns all over the place. But those sheriffs cannot be challenged by any statute law. They do not apply. They do not, at the moment, the gun laws and the covert thing, they didn't shut their counties down because the sheriff is in charge of the police. There's a very good video on my channel where the sheriff, the chief of police comes up and has a go at the sheriff, and the sheriff told him, "Get off, go back, or we'll lock you up." So it's on my channel there. You look at it, you'll see the power of the sheriff. He overrides. The constable goes back as well, a long way with the sheriff, but the constable never had the same power as the sheriff. The sheriff is the supreme law enforcement officer. And you can have that in England, as you had way back. You can have it now. One of you guys can say, Stephen, they say, I'd like to be a sheriff. You just get some people to elect you. You set up a court. You get sworn in. You appoint deputies, and you go from there. And anybody needs any help on it, we'll help you from here.
Can I just come in here? Can I just say, because I've spoken to both of you at length about this, and I think, Barry, what you're saying is similar to what Gary has been desperate to get out for a long time. You're talking about micronations, little principalities, which is really the same thing as a shire, Derbyshire and Wiltshire, and where the hobbits come from. So it's the same sort of thing. And what Gary was talking about the other day, we haven't finished the conversation, but I think it'd be really beneficial for you to be on Richard's show and talk about this, is that we do create our own shires, our own jurisdictions, with our own passport, flags, the whole lot. And actually, Gary said, Richard, you're in a very good position to do this because you've got a mass following, and we can.
Yeah, because you can have a virtual micronation with different territories that hold the people that actually have taken an oath and have an application of citizenship to that understanding. which is a unique collective awareness, essentially. That's another part of it.
I must look for my crown and my flag.
Well, the thing is, when you actually do a micronation, you've got to pick what type of setup you're going to have. Are you going to have a monarchy? Yeah. Are you going to have a republic? Are you going to have a constitutional, like we have in England?
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I know Richard was jesting about the flag and everything, but this is the truth. Every man should have his own flag, his own coat of arms, and his own jurisdiction and his own law upon his land. So this has all been forgotten. What's that?
And a ring.
Yeah, the ring, the seal. If you know
the seal, that's right. The seal, man. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the seal.
Yeah, well,
this all goes back.
There's the seals on the. Yeah. There are our seals there.
I think we're all talking about the same thing. It's just bringing it together, and you know, and I think there is because we do need to answer a couple more questions. I think because we've only got 20 minutes to go, but there's obviously something that needs to come from this, and you guys need to have a chat with Richard, who's going to be, you know, our new king.
I didn't acquiesce to any of that. Thank you very much. I know how many kings have lost their head over history.
Only one. Oh, and they sewed it back. They sewed it back on for respect afterwards. When they chopped his head off, they actually sewed it back on.
Charles the First.
That's not so bad.
Charles, yeah.
Charles the First, yeah. For being a king.
One of the questions coincidentally says, does the king have a passport?
They probably made a mistake chopping his head off, so they decided to put it back on. They were embarrassed that it probably didn't look all that good, you know?
Yeah.
The people who run the system don't have passports. Passports are for plebs, type P.
Plebs and paupers, aren't we?
Paupers, that's right.
Dorian Gray just reminds us that court is on paper and not in a building. I think that's a valid thing to say. Mm-hmm. And we had a question here specifically for Pete from South Africa. I've grabbed that one because we're all over the world today, aren't we? Canada, Australia, I'm in Spain. So to Pete, he says, please explain life colour policies, because he's got two. I mean, that might be a long answer, but
the what? Sorry, policies?
Life policy.
Life policies.
Yeah, life cover policies, because he's got two.
Can you give
in what respect?
Yeah, in what respect?
Are you talking about them on maybe your course that you do?
Life policy.
Specific to you. So please explain life cover policies. He's got two life cover.
As in insurance.
Is he talking about
insurance? It comes through admiralty law. So if you're going through looking at any type of insurance, it's usually for admiralty law. So that's
we all
self-insure
for it. Is that what he's talking about?
I would have thought life insurance.
Okay.
Try and find the question. It's way back.
Let's ask the question to just give us more information, because otherwise we're answering a question that may not be there. Shall we focus on another question that we've got?
I've got another one.
Okay.
Well, do you want me to cover insurance, just so everybody knows how insurance works?
Yeah.
So insurance, you self-insure. Okay, so you self-insure on everything. So it's home insurance, car insurance, does not matter what type of insurance it is. But the way it works is if you contact an insurance company, they facilitate your credit. They create a bond in your name from your foreign situs trust, usually for about $4 million if it's for a car. And they hold that bond for 12 months. And if you have an accident, they use that bond to pay for all the administration costs and the damages occurred. If you don't make a claim in those 12 months, they're supposed to give you back that $4 million bond. They don't. They hold on to it for 3 years, and then it's declared you've abandoned it. Then they have the right to sell it on the debt market and make millions off you. And not only are they making millions off you, but then they're hitting you with high premiums and jacking it up 4 times the price. It's a big scam. But yeah, we all self-insure.
Well, that's one way of controlling the interest rate, isn't it?
Yes.
Right. Pete, how do we claim that $4 million back?
Yes, we can find it. If you can find that bond, you can claim it back.
Because you do that for your own private indemnity bond.
Yes.
Because that lasts until you die, and you state that on it.
Don't die. That's the thing.
You state that on it, that this indemnity bond will last until the day I die. And then it will no longer exist.
Richard, go ahead. Richard wants to say something.
Sorry,
Richard in his own show. What, Richard? What are you doing?
Well, Richard,
interrupting us.
Press
him. I'm so sorry. Here's a question. which has been here for a while. Thanks, Julia, for passing this on. This is from iFunction, or iFunction, I suppose it is. Is there any way to stop paying for your student loan when employed?
Yes, you can stop paying. Well, okay, this is not legal advice, everybody. But what you should be doing is challenging the creditor of the loan that you received. You say, who's the creditor of this loan? And that's the position you go down. So you can turn around and say, well, here's the thing. You have the right to know who the creditor is of the loan. Little clue, it's actually you. So because you're the creditor of the loan, why are you paying it back? So you can do that with everything. Student loan, mortgages, car loans, credit card, the whole thing. It's all the same.
Just you endorsed the debt, unfortunately.
Actually, it's interesting. You were talking about bonds a few minutes ago. In England, here, they have the Secrets Commission Act of 1905, and I brought that up to a magistrate in relation to, I'd like full disclosure in relation to the Secrets Commission Act of 1914. Well, you put the paperwork in before us, and when he read it, he said, next case, because there's an $18,000 fine for not getting vaccinated on a farm. And the solicitor says, oh, well, what about our case? And he was from the health department. He's magistrate. I said, the next case. Now, the Secrets Commission Act in relation to bonds must apply in England as well, because they're all making money in the courts putting bonds up. So look up, it's the Secrets Commission Act of 1914. I don't know, I dare say it's around the same time in England. Well, if you bring that up to a magistrate and ask for full disclosure on it, you will find that he will actually won't talk about it. He'll try and get rid of the case. Now, I don't know how it'll happen in England, but it definitely happened here.
Interesting,
yeah.
We've got about 12 minutes to go, unless we get some really.
I want to go to bed.
Dr. Barry's going to bed. I don't blame him. It must be nearly 4 o'clock in the morning now. It's almost hardly worth it. You'll be getting up in
10 to 5. Yeah.
Gosh, that's right.
Well, you guys are great. You're worth talking to. It's good.
No, it's been lovely. It's been very lovely having you on the show, because you brought a completely different perspective to some of the questions. So what we tend to do towards the end of the show is, if anyone wants to promote what they're doing, or have something, a book to sell, or they want to offer gardening tips, whatever it is, or you've got a recipe for chocolate that's edible, then.
Could I mention you did your monologue this morning?
Yes.
And you were talking about everyone should be standing their ground and serving notice and saying, with the 5G and all the rest of it, we've had enough. Okay. Just to let everybody know, that's what the Sovereign Project's doing. So this is all underground. We're gaining numbers. There's thousands of us now, all learning this stuff. And when there's enough of us, we're going to be serving notice on all these politicians. So anyone watching, if you want to get involved, get in contact with the Sovereign Project and join a local chess club or workshop, or become a lone knight and join the network. Get educated, because we're all going to be striking on one day. That's the reason it's called Fight Club.
And let me ask you this then, Pete. What did you think of my point that men and women are the highest authority in the land next to the Creator?
Absolutely correct. Authority comes from the sovereign, which would be a man or a woman who's over the age of consent. Absolutely correct. Now, the law of the land, I think we might just have to clarify this law of the land thing, okay? So a lot of people think that law of the land is like a universal thing. Not quite. What it is law of the individual sovereign's land. All right. So on my land, I make the law on my land, and Gary would make the law on his land, and Stan and Barry and Tony and Karen and all the rest of it. You would make law on your land. Okay. So
notice you missed me. You missed me.
And you as well. Sorry, Richard, but you can make law on your land as well. Now, the way it works is that the law of the land is that you'll find decent, honest people all pretty much share the same law book, because we all agree you shouldn't steal, you shouldn't rape, and all the rest of it. Okay,
golden rule. Yes,
exactly. So that is how the law of the land works. So it can't be centralized. So the problem with law itself is when it's centralized, that is when everybody loses their right to make law, which is exactly what's happened now. It's all centralized within a corporation called the United Kingdom or Parliament or whatever you want to call it. They've seized control. It's been centralized, and that's what they're doing, and they're controlling everybody's lives. And we've all got to become responsible and claim our law back and say, I make law in my dominion on my land. And everyone should be doing that, especially men. Absolutely, men should be doing this. Because men are supposed to protect women and children, by the way.
Yeah, but you have to actually then get the dominion of your true land, which is you first.
Yes.
Claim this dominion, then claim the rest of it.
Correct.
The sad thing about men, the men seem to have gone by the wayside, is the majority of people who support us now are women. And that's a photograph in the background there. That's the common law court. The black chairs facing this is where the audience, and the chairs over on the other side is where the jury sits. So, and we have an adjudicator. We don't have a magistrate. We have an adjudicator, which is basically keeps the peace there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Brilliant.
That's good.
Does anybody want to promote? So that was Sovereign Pete, and we gave out the thing before. It's the sovereignproject.live, and don't fall for any imposters.
Yes, there's some fake ones out there. There's only one. We don't charge for membership, all right? So if you land on a website... Membership. That's right. Ship. So, yes. But we don't charge for that.
2 peas in a pod. Quote from Laurel and Hardy.
And you don't register, do you? You just show an interest in register.
Correct. Enroll. You just enroll. That's not a problem. And it's a choice. There's nothing wrong with membership as long as you know you're actually joining and deciding, I want to be a member. It's not a problem. You can join the local gym and become a member of that. It's not a problem.
Yeah, as long as it's voluntary, then.
Yes, as long as it's voluntary, it's not a problem. But all these bureaucrats, they've tricked us and pulled them into their membership and not told us. Members of the public. This is why you don't want to be a member of the public.
Anybody else got anything to promote in the last few minutes of the dying embers of this show? What are you laughing at, Karen?
Somebody just called you Ricardo the Magnificent. I think that's brilliant. King Ricardo.
Yeah, the Great Ricardo. I used to go under the non. When I was juggling and unicycling, fire eating, walking on a slack rope, riding in a giraffe unicycle, balancing on a walking globe, juggling 5 balls, and all of those things. Wow. Back in the day before I lost my. It is impressive, actually. Thank you very much.
Wow.
And did mime and robotics and all of that nonsense.
And your bag and your briefcase.
Yeah, my briefcase. Sorry. So I used to go under the name The Great Ricardo. And the great thing about that was and I would have an agent. And so the way I look at the legal fiction now is the same thing, that the Great Ricardo is this thing created by the Crown, the Great Ricardo is created by this authority, Vobes. And then an agent would ring up and go, hello, is that Great Ricardo? And I could say, well, no, this is Richard Vobes, but the Great Ricardo is my act. And if you want to book the act, I can book it for you. And they go, oh yeah, please, how much is it? It's a lot. And then they would book it. And so, understanding the difference between the legal fiction, the all caps name, and you, a living soul in with consciousness that peers out of a skull, or at least I think I peer out of a skull. I've no idea because I can't actually see it. Because you don't, can't you? I mean, and I don't know whether I believe mirrors anymore. So anyway, I don't know why I mentioned that. Anybody got anything else to promote?
Oh, is there any more? I know your roadshow you were doing. Is there any live events that you should be?
Yes, oh my God, yes, I forgot.
Yeah, okay, good.
Yes, there is. So, we're going to Scotland, aren't we, Sovereign Pete?
We're trying to sort it out. I'm not bragging here, but my pilot is trying to sort us out a private jet to get us from Leicester to Scotland. So if we can pull that off, then I will make that. I'm not joking either. That's actually happening.
It depends where he's flying from, though, because we might all have to go to
flying from Leicester, private airport.
From Glasgow, did you say?
Leicester. Yeah, Glasgow.
I'll tell you what, Pete, there's a lot of money in that for internal flights.
Oh yeah. It's the only way to travel, I don't do public transport anymore,
What about airship? Could you not go by airship like the old Tartarians used to do?
Not the ship.
Yeah.
So going back to that, yes, so we've got the Lawful Remedy Roadshow. Thank you, Tony, for reminding me. It's the 22nd of September. So the venue's booked, lots of tickets have been sold, Norrie's organised out the accommodation. We just got to get there. So hopefully Sovereign Pete might be able to get us a flight. I'll probably come on my own because I'm coming from down south, but you know, it will happen. So that's that one. And also we are we've got a comedy night at Hope, because I'm saying this because Rich is our compere. He's our MC. Yeah, that's on Saturday over in East Sussex. And I am organising my, I think, final Uprise and Shine conference at Hope as well in September. So that's the 7th and 8th of September. So I'm moving on to other things. So that's me. Anybody else?
Anybody else? And there was the tumbleweed.
Let's just keep promoting the Freedom Network, the Sovereign Project, and every other freedom movement.
Any means to bring people together. Could I just say very briefly also, Barry, you mentioned assemblies. I don't know, we've got 4 minutes to go, but you mentioned assemblies being part of the statutory system, because I'm very wary of assemblies, and I know there's a big movement over here in England pushing these assemblies. And I just, you know, my instinct says I'm
Yeah. It is their system, and the thing is, if you're going to have common law, you can't have a committee. We have a gathering. So when we have a court case, we send word out, and we're going to have a gathering on the 27th or whatever date it is, and 20 to up to 100, 200 people have turned up to sometimes to get to see what's going on, and everybody wants to be on a jury, but then they get picked. Well, you can't have a what do you call it, a secretary of the thing. Sorry, you can't have a committee. We're setting up a committee on the side to run things, but no control over the common law court itself. The common law court is a gathering of people, men and women, get together to form or to come to a lawful remedy for a problem. So that's very important. Assemblies, which Mick Holt set up here in Melbourne, in Queensland, and he had them all over the place, and they were making money. People had to pay money to it and stuff. They never had one court case, and the word assembly, he was told by John Smith at the time, which was John Smith in England was really into common law. He had court cases. I don't know how good they were, but he did it, and he gave all that away for money in the end. But the thing is, it's just a gathering of people coming together to form a lawful remedy for a complaint or a problem.
And assemblies, I always remind me of school and how official, and, you know, stand in a line, but be quiet, somebody's going to talk. Whereas your gathering just sounds like a very pleasant soiree in which people sort of swan in and have a glass or something. Yeah, it's all very nice, isn't it? Lovely. Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, everybody. It's been an absolute pleasure. We've had a full packed panel. Just to remind everybody, we've had, in order of sequence, I can't remember, we had, Sovereign Pete, who's there. Thank you, Sovereign Pete. And Dr. Barry from Down Under, who you have to say something, otherwise the picture doesn't change.
Okay, it's me. Yes. Hi, guys. Yes. It's great talking to you guys in England. I was over there last year, by the way, and it rained.
Yes, it does. It does that a lot at the moment. You've got our permission to go and put your pajamas on and have a jolly old snooze.
Yes, it's just 5 o'clock in the morning. I'll go to bed.
I don't blame you. And big thanks to Tony, who is there.
Thanks,
Thanks, Tony. Always lovely to see you. And is that a cardigan or a waistcoat jacket you got on there?
It's a short sleeve cardigan.
Very nice.
Ben Sherman.
Yeah. Oh, well, there we are.
Of course, very nice, yeah.
There we are.
Thank you.
No, pleasure. And I don't know whether you're still in Canada. Are you, Stan?
Yes, I am, unfortunately.
You're still there,
Yep.
but leaving for the UK any minute.
That was the plan.
Good man. Thank you so much, Stan, for your wonderful contribution as well. I think that was it, really. And over
Gary,
to you.
Yes,
Gary.
It was all forgotten about. Poor Gary.
Gary, you still there?
That's it. He's going in a huff.
I'm off.
It's off.
I'm going. I'm going now. I don't know.
I'm so sorry, Gary. On my screen, it only shows 1, 2, 3, 4.
I'm easily to forget.
No, not at all.
Not at all, Gary.
It was good to meet you, Gary.
Well, all I would say, just as a last thought, is just to everybody watching, just what are you prepared to tolerate, and then move on from there.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Not really wanting to tolerate any more of these thugs coming around taking people out of their houses, as we see all the time. Karen, thank you so much for organising everything. When is the next one of these?
I think we're on next Thursday. I think I keep wanting to say Banana Man, but Banana Man, I think I'm just waiting for his confirmation next Thursday, and another couple of new people as well.
Brilliant. I will make I'll just have to check my diary because I may have put
with you. It's your show. You asked me, but you know. I don't know don't know what I'm doing one day to the next at the moment. And big thanks to the lovely Julia, who often comes running in at the end to say, she's been moderating in the chat room, but she can't do that because she's looking after children in her own abode, if I can use abode. I'm not quite sure on the language these days. Home, in her own home, in a lovely home.
Can't be taxed.
In that place where we seek shelter.
That's it. Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
She waves madly in the chat room. There we go. So that's lovely. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for coming along. Thank you for your questions. It's been a bit interesting. Every show is very different. Today we've had a lot more panel talking and discussing the differences between different types of law, which has been really enlightening. I've really enjoyed it. So that was been grand. And of course, thanks to you for coming to the chat room. Thanks for watching. Thanks for all that gold and silver that you're just about to donate, which is very helpful. And until next time, it's goodbye from all of us. So I'd just like everybody to smile, if you wouldn't mind, and I'll put you up on the screen. And there they all are. Look at that. How fantastic. And if I'm very clever, I can do a print screen at the same time. There we go, for the thumbnail. Brilliant. That's it from us. Thank you so much. Until next time, I don't know where I am on that screen, but there, it doesn't matter. Till next time.